In the autumn of 2021, a company that held an estimated value for nearly every house in the United States decided it could no longer guess what a house was worth. On November 2nd, Zillow announced it was winding down Zillow Offers, its home flipping arm. In the same breath, it disclosed a $304 million write-down on homes sitting in inventory, warned of another $240 to $265 million still to come, and said it would cut about 1/4 of its workforce, roughly 2,000 people. Across the life of the program, the segment's losses run close to $1 billion. Here is the part worth sitting with. Nothing exotic killed this. No fraud, no derivative, no offshore vehicle. It died of arithmetic. A gross margin of a few percent met a market that moved by 5, and the arithmetic finished the job in under 2 quarters. Today, we open it up and look at the organs. Zillow Offers launched in 2018. The pitch to homeowners was simple and genuinely useful. Skip the listing. Skip the showings. Skip the uncertainty. Answer some questions about your house. Receive a cash offer in days. Choose your own closing date. Zillow called it a convenience product, and it was. The homeowner paid for that convenience through a service fee, and in exchange, Zillow absorbed the thing sellers hate most, which is not knowing what the house will actually fetch. The industry name for this is iBuying. Opendoor did it. OfferPad did it. Redfin ran a version of it. By the middle of 2021, the American housing market was the hottest on record. National repeat sales indices closed the year up roughly 18 to 19%. In that environment, buying houses looked like the easiest trade on the board, and Zillow leaned in hard. In the third quarter of 2021 alone, the company bought about 9,700 homes and sold about 3,000. Read that again. It was buying more than 3 times faster than it could sell. Strip away the app, and iBuying is not a real estate business. It is an inventory business, and the inventory happens to be $400,000 units that cannot be moved and take months to turn. The loop has 5 steps. 1. A model estimates the resale value of a specific house. 2. You offer the seller close to that value, and you deduct a service fee of roughly 5% at closing. 3. You close using borrowed money, typically 80 to 90 cents of debt for every dollar of house, drawn from warehouse credit lines. 4. You spend a few weeks on light renovation, paint, carpet, landscaping, a repaired roof, a serviced furnace. 5. You relist and sell, paying the buyer's agent and the closing costs on the way out the door. Your revenue is the resale price. Your cost is the purchase price plus everything in between. The entire enterprise lives inside that difference. And because the merchandise is financed, every single day it sits on your books, it is charging you rent. Take one house. Estimated resale value $400,000, which is roughly the range these programs were actually transacting in. The target gross spread across the industry was about 7 to 8% of price. A slice of that is a modest discount to market, and most of it is the service fee. Call it $32,000 of gross margin captured on the way in. Now the deductions. Renovation. Public reporting and competitor filings put light rehab at $10,000 to $15,000 per home. Call it $12,000. Holding costs for 90 days. Property tax, at a national average effective rate near 1.1%, is about $1,100. Insurance, utilities, lawn care and association dues, another $900. Interest on $340,000 of debt at 4% for a quarter of a year is about $3,400. Round the carry to $5,000. Selling costs. The buyer's agent commission at 2.5 to 3% is $10,000 to $12,000. Title, escrow and transfer taxes add $3,000 to $4,000. Call it $15,000. 12 plus 5 plus 15 is $32,000 against a gross spread of $32,000. Before $1 of corporate overhead, the perfect flip earns nothing. So how did anyone believe this worked? Because for 2 years, the market quietly paid the difference. If a house appreciates 4% while you hold it, that is $16,000 of profit you did not underwrite and did not earn. Appreciation was not the tailwind on this business. Appreciation was the entire margin. Which brings us to the irony at the center of this autopsy. Zillow owned the most complete housing data set in the world, and it was using that data to bid against itself. The estimate is trained on closed sales. Closed sales are 60 to 90 days old by the time they record. So every offer was priced off the market as it existed a quarter earlier and then closed 30 to 45 days after that. In an accelerating market, that lag looks like genius. In a decelerating market, and by the autumn of 2021 prices were decelerating, that same lag becomes a machine for buying yesterday's prices. Then there is accuracy. Zillow published its own error rates. For homes actively listed, the median estimate error was about 1.9%. For off-market homes, the exact kind Zillow offers was buying, it was about 6.9%. Here are 3 risks that never appear in a growth deck. Risk 1. Adverse selection. You do not receive a random sample of your pricing errors. A seller compares your cash offer to what a local agent tells them the house is worth. When your model is low, they decline. When your model is high, they sign that afternoon. So the trades you win are systematically the ones where you overpaid. A median error of 6.9% does not average out to 0. It gets filtered, and the filter only points one direction. Risk 2. Correlated inventory. 9,700 houses is not a portfolio. It is one trade, repeated, concentrated in a handful of Sunbelt metros that all move together. There is no diversification in owning the same bet 9,000 times. Risk 3. Throughput. Renovation ran straight into contractor shortages, permit backlogs, and materials prices that tripled and then collapsed. When hold time stretches from 90 days to 150, the carry roughly doubles. Zillow said as much publicly, citing labor and supply-constrained capacity. Every delay is a levered position held longer than it was underwritten to be held. Findings. 1. The margin was thinner than the measurement error. A business targeting 2% of net cannot rely on a price signal that is routinely wrong by 7. 2. The leverage inverted the risk. On a $400,000 house with $60,000 of equity behind it, a 5% move in prices is $20,000, 1/3 of that equity, decided by conditions nobody controls. 3. The entry was instant, and the exit was slow. Buying takes a click and a wire. Selling takes 90 days and a willing counterparty. Any business whose intake runs faster than its outflow eventually drowns in its own inventory, and in that third quarter, Zillow was taking in 3 houses for everyone it released. 4. The write-down was not an event. It was the accounting system catching up to a price that had already been paid months earlier. Cause of death: negative unit economics disguised as revenue growth inside an appreciating market. Contributing factor: leverage. Time of death: November 2nd, 2021. The wind down itself was mechanical. Zillow disclosed the $304 million inventory write-down for the third quarter and guided to another $240 to $265 million for the fourth. Press reporting at the time described roughly 7,000 homes being marketed in bulk to institutional landlords at prices reported below what Zillow had paid. About 2,000 jobs, a quarter of the company, were eliminated. Public market data shows shares that traded above $200 in February of 2021, changing hands near $30 by the summer of 2022. Now, the comparison. In that same year, according to a widely cited property data provider, the median gross profit on a traditional American house flip was about $65,000, a gross return near 31%. Those headline figures exclude renovation and carry, so the real net is far lower, perhaps a third of it. But look at the shape rather than the size. The human flipper's rule of thumb is to pay 70% of resale value, minus repairs. That is a 30% buffer. Zillow's buffer was 8. The takeaway is not that algorithms cannot price houses. They can, with useful precision, most of the time. The takeaway is that your margin has to be wider than the noise in your own price signal, wider than the volatility of the asset, and wider still when you're levered against it. A disciplined flipper buys a damaged house and sells a repaired one. The spread is payment for work performed and for the specific risk of one property. An iBuyer buys convenience and sells liquidity. The spread is a fee, and a fee is fixed while the market never is. When the buffer is smaller than the move, you are not operating a flipping business at all. You're running a leveraged long position on national house prices with a renovation department bolted to the side. Next time, we open the private lending machine, where a 10% yield actually comes from, who is paying it, and the 3 risks that never make it into the pitch deck. We cut deals open and show you what's actually inside.